Good morning and welcome. This is the first episode of the Frank Howard Totally Hooked podcast. It's the inaugural episode. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about a little bit about myself growing up in the Washington, D.C. area. And we're going to have I decided I want to have a word of the day, so we're going to have a word of the day. And we're going to talk about Clash of Clans. It's a really popular iPhone app. And then we're going to talk about a little bit about the news. And really, this episode is just meant to be more of just a welcoming podcast. This is a really informal podcast, just meant to kind of just talk about anything. So I really wanted to just develop my own communication skills and record everything. And it started out yesterday. I just recorded myself with my iPhone, and I was like, it's kind of fun. So decided to go ahead and get started with podcasting. So here we go. So good morning. My name is Frank Howard. Today is January 18th, 2015, and welcome to the Totally Hooked podcast. Frank Howard. Let's start with that. Is that my real name? No, that's not my real name. Frank is my middle name, and Howard is a name I made up because I'm afraid of all you crazy people out there. No, I'm not. What a horrible way to start this podcast. I'm thinking way too seriously. This is not the kind of seriousness that this podcast is. I need to just take off these notes and not think about it. But no, I'm just thinking back. There was some pros and cons to using your real name. That when you're using a pseudonym name, for example, if you're like a rapper or something, and you come up with a rapper name, it might be cooler than your actual name. And there's safety issues. For me, it's because I basically am afraid of my coworkers, and I don't want them to be listening to this and saying things about me. And yeah, it's the peer pressure. So right now my name's Frank Howard. Perhaps if this podcast ever becomes popular and a lot of people start listening to it, maybe my real name will come out. Maybe I'll come out of the closet with my real name at some point. But for now, since I've got a day job and a lot of other things, and I just don't want to deal with it in my professional life. I just chose the name Frank Howard as my middle name, and I like the word Howard. This is so I guess a little bit about this guy, this fake name guy. I can tell you a little bit more of the truth about me. I live in the Washington, D.C. area. I've lived here for about 7 years now. I have a master's degree in business administration. I have an undergraduate degree in English, and I have a computer science degree it's a 2-year degree at a community college. I like to read a lot about business. I like to play the ukulele. I like to do a lot of things in Washington, D.C. I like to do photography. I do semi-professional photography in this area. I like to just be creative, and I think that this podcast was designed in order to have more of a creative outlet for me. Okay, Jesus. It's 3 minutes into the podcast, this new podcast. It's so funny because, when you first start a podcast, you start thinking, I'm going to have this, I'm going to have that, it's going to look like this, and I actually wrote all these notes out for things I'm going to talk about. And I got to be honest, those first 3 minutes sounded so fake and inauthentic, like I was reading off a page. I'm not going to go back and delete it, but that just sounded like one of the worst intros to a welcoming podcast. But from the way I understand podcasts anyways, that's how it starts. It's not like I'm not just going to start out by being a 10 podcast, like a top great podcast or anything. I just want to see how things organically grow over time. And by recording myself and putting it out there, if I develop an audience, maybe I'll figure out more about what listeners like, and I'll be able to add more value, and then really talk about the things that I like, because I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about, especially here in the Washington, D.C. area. there's always a lot going on around here. There's always a lot of interesting people and interesting things to do. And perhaps there's some people out there that if you're working out, if you're in your daily commute, or maybe if you're just like I do, like I listen to podcasts when I play Clash of Clans, and that's what I was hoping to talk about here in a bit, is my Clash of Clans experiences. I'm 32 years old, by the way, and in my clan, there's mostly like older people in their 30s and 40s. But if I go onto Facebook, like on my Facebook, and try to type up like Clash of Clans and I connect, probably 1 or 2% of my friends on Facebook actually Clash. And whenever I post anything about Clash of Clans, people don't understand. It's the #1 grossing app in the iTunes right now, and I've been clashing for close to a year now. I have a Town Hall 10, and I've got mostly Town Hall 9 maxed units, and it's just a fun game. It has, thinking about that MBA side, like in my opinion, it has so many things that relate with business. There's operations management. If you consider the village you're designing as an operation, there's teamwork. You have to actually work with other people. You have a lot of different personalities. There's finance. You got to be, when you go on raids, you want to actually earn more than you spend. Essentially, that's what I believe just is a successful way of running a business. You got to earn more money than you spend. It sounds pretty obvious, but it plays itself out everywhere. And so there's operations. There's and it's just a cool game. It's just fun. It's like I know World of Warcraft is one of the most popular multiplayer online games. It's sort of like the original Warcraft 2, where you've got it's like they call it real-time strategy, so it's a real-time strategy game, but you build more characters over time. Okay, here we are, 6-7 minutes. I'm going to try to stop with a lot of this fake stuff, because like sometimes when I drone on and on, even though I have these notes here, I think it just seems more authentic when I just kind of step away from the notes and just start saying what's actually on my mind. But it's funny because I'm looking at the notes, so I'm going to go ahead and read the notes anyway. It says gratuitous was, so I just decided, another little bit of backstory about Mr. Frank Howard is that I was really involved with Toastmasters, and Toastmasters is a really popular public speaking group. And one year, it is a new year right now, and 1 year is a New Year's resolution. I decided to join, Toastmasters, a public speaking group, and I really took it pretty far. I made it all the way to Distinguished Toastmaster, and the reason I'm was talking about that is because I just had sat in so many meetings, and every single Toastmasters meeting it starts off, if it's done right, like every club is different, but like 95% or pretty much all clubs have what's called a word of the day. And what happens is you choose a word of the day, and throughout, if you're giving a speech, or if you're commenting on a speech, or if you're standing up in front of the audience and you use the word of the day, it's kind of like a bonus. You should try to be using the word of the day, because you're learning a new word, and it's one way to learn something new every day. So I went, me being the word of the day type person, I just Googled word of the day. Dictionary.com has, I didn't know this, but I guess they have a word of the day that they always use. And today's word of the day is gratuitous. It's an adjective, and you've probably heard it many times. I know I have. And gratuitous means done or provided without recompense. Oh my God. Recompense. RECOMPENSE. Okay, I'm going to get a lot of crap for that. Like recompense, like recompensation, like recompense. Free. Okay, done or provided without payment, like free. That's the first part. Or not called for by circumstances, unwarranted. Gratuitous is unwarranted, free or unwarranted. Okay. John seems incapable of talking about anything he owns without a gratuitous reference to the amount of money he spent on it. So I guess we can think about that a lot, because people are very gratuitous in a lot of things. And, you can even say that I've been kind of gratuitous on this podcast. I've also been just, learning and growing with it. But that word is an interesting word. I hope if you're listening, it helps you out and you might be able to use that word today. Gratuitous, unwarranted. So when somebody's giving you gratuitous feedback, that's just a little bit too much, and it's probably bugging the crap out of you. I'm going to, just a second. Okay. That just burned through a lot of the notes that I had. I'm recently overcoming, I had a stomach virus on Thursday. I ate some kind of raw meat, and Friday was not very pretty at all. This is right before Martin Luther King Day. Like I said, yeah, I don't know if that's even a good idea. Like, I might want to get some feedback here, but is dating the podcast a good thing or a bad thing? Because as soon as something like this comes out, it's already kind of dated. You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people, they're kind of like me. Like, I always want to have whatever the most recent, current, fresh, up-to-date thing is. And if I say here January 15th, 2015, or January 18th, 2015, it might be 2016, 2017. It might be like 3 or 4 years later, and people are listening to this. So sometimes dating things might or may not even be that good. It's just an interesting time we live in, when you can just search for whatever you want. So you can read stuff and information that came out years ago, but it not have any impact on you until you search for it. So maybe it's much later in the future, and you're just listening to this and trying to get a grasp on things, or maybe no one's listening to it. Yeah, maybe no one's listening to it. Now, this is such a... Gosh, I can already see how I think this is going to help my ability to communicate a little bit. Just talking. I'm going to sit back a little. I'm very uncomfortable right now. I'm going to just adjust this. Here we go. Whoa. Okay, that's not going to work. All right. Testing. 1, 2. Okay. So, like I said, I live in the Washington, D.C. area for 7 years. I've metroed into the D.C. area. I've metroed into the city. I've explored the entire city. I've taken a lot of photographs of the city, a lot of really great photographs. I might even put the links up here for, if this ever expands like into a blog where I'm putting up my... Because I'm just now, yesterday I spent about 3 hours watching different little podcast videos, like how to have a successful podcast. And yeah, that's how much of a nerd I am. Isn't this horrible? It's a bad way to, like, it seems like the more popular ones, like I listen to Joe Rogan's podcast, and he has a very organic way of doing it. He just does whatever he wants. I mean, he's a professional comedian. He's got a lot of experience. Like I said, I'm only 32 years old, so I've still, I've got a lot under my belt, but there's plenty more life that I have ahead of me. And but that being said, like, in the future, so I'm watching these videos about how to have a great podcast, and a lot of them you have to have a feed, you have to have a website. I don't even have a website. I don't even have a Twitter. That's how Bill Burr says Twitter. I don't even have a Twitter account. I need to get I don't know. It depends on how popular I want this to be. I mean, right now this is just therapeutic for me on a Sunday morning to be talking and hopefully just having fun and talking a little bit about the things I'm interested in, things like philosophy and stuff like that. But maybe as I evolve and become more better at communicating and more good at thinking about different things in life and adding, what I understand, maybe that'll make things a lot better. So it's interesting. Yeah, and there was a lot of things in the podcast. Like, you can really go deep into this. Like, you can. It reminded me of when. So I used to do a lot of music recording, and I played in a rock band in high school, and I used to just. I really liked creating music and songs and recording. And one of the things I remember from all that is you can get really caught up in like minutia. You can get caught up in like the details of everything. Like, I had a buddy, he had all this awesome gear, and he had all this recording gear, and he had all these like, really nice microphones and stuff like that. And, his voice just wasn't that good, and the music itself just wasn't, the content wasn't entertaining. And it just kind of made me think, and in my experience, I used to get caught up in a lot of things like what kind of equipment am I using and stuff like that. But, as I've gotten older, I've realized that it's the actual, just the skill of what you're presenting, that's important. People always say, like, especially in music, like the Beatles, they most of their work was recorded on 4 tracks. And today, with like the power of like GarageBand and stuff like that, you can have all kinds of high tech. You have all kinds of state of the art stuff. It's just maybe when it's free, people don't value it as much. What's in GarageBand is arguably more powerful than a lot of stuff in the last, early years of recording. But since it's free, it's like people don't want to exercise their ability to be creative. And maybe the same thing can be said about this podcast. Like, I started looking into it. I was like, you can take it really far. You can get a really nice setup. It's really expensive. But all I did is I got this, like, this Zoom H4n, and I already had a microphone. So I just hooked up my microphone. I already had headphones. And I'm just recording it right into the Zoom 4HN. And I already have like GarageBand and stuff like that. So afterwards, it's just going to go on my WAV file, and I'm going to export it and just keep it really simple. What I like about that is just it's portable, and it sounds professional enough where I'm at right now with this podcast to like just put stuff out there. And that's really what it is. I had this other demo podcast I did yesterday where I had my iPhone, and I had like the little headphone, like the microphone that comes with the headsets on the iPhone 6. I was speaking into that, and actually that was a really great podcast, and it sounded really good. But I talked about this idea of like being a creator versus being a consumer, and that's a interesting kind of thing I'm often reflecting about. I'm going to write that down: creative versus. Sorry. Hopefully, if I compress this down, that won't happen. Okay, I got to stop doing shit like that. So, creative versus consumer, and the example I used was college. So, a lot of people go to college, and when I went to college, it was like this idea that when you graduate, that's how you get a job. You're entitled to a job. And I think that's how most students think. Our president, Barack Obama, recently came, and he was talking about having free community colleges for people, like at tuition free for community college. And what I think a lot of students mistakenly believe when they're in college is that they are creating value. And I don't know how much value is being created unless I could see some of the research that's being done. But for the most part, you're a consumer. And what kind of tips me off to that is that basically where's the money going? A student is paying a university. So in my mind, the university is the creator of value. The university is creating something valuable to the consumer, and the consumer is paying money to get the product, which is an education, which in this country, education is now a barrier to entry to middle-class jobs. And Yeah, so there's no, like, where's the value? But your average student when I was going to college was kind of thinking that they're creating value, but nothing value is really being created. Nothing truly of value, I think. And a sign of that is, are people paying for it? That's just, what I think. I don't know. But anyway, there was, so Obama, actually, I thought this was kind of interesting. Like, community college is really underrated. Like, a lot of people, it seems like some of the most valuable things are learned at community colleges because community colleges are so technical. When I was an undergraduate, things started to become more and more strategic, I guess, or more and more philosophical. And philosophy is great, actually. I think it makes you think more and it helps. But if you want like specific technical craft and skills, like photography is a good example. Most community colleges, they have like a class like on photography, and you'll learn the basics of photography, and you'll learn the basics of like what's it called? You'll learn the basics of like acting, and it doesn't have to just be the humanities, whatever. Like an art, it can be like coding. There's classes in Cisco routers, coding, stuff that in industries that have been growing or expected to be growing. I think network security is still a pretty viable job, where at least you'll have a decent job and grow. And I know I've seen it because I get these community college mailings where they have classes for like network security and programming, like C programming or a lot of programming languages and stuff like that. What I think starts to happen when you become like an undergrad is maybe when you start combining all those techniques, all the technical information, it starts to become more like strategic or philosophical. Because like maybe if you just learned like 4 or 5 programming languages instead of just one, maybe you're more inclined to see a more strategic picture, a bigger picture to like the design of it. And that's just what I've found, like things. And then I was thinking about this, like a PhD, like when I heard a doctor back in the day, like PhDs, I didn't really know what it meant, but like a doctor of philosophy, like when I was an undergrad, and I was like, okay, it's a doctor of philosophy. So like when you go into those higher level classes, like it's no longer technique, it's no longer hard laws of physics. It probably becomes more theoretical and philosophical, and that's probably why like a PhD is considered like a doctor of philosophy, and that word. I grew up in the South. I grew up in Tennessee, and around a lot of people that really valued like engineering, and I grew up kind of near Oak Ridge in Knoxville, Tennessee, and in that area there's the Department of Energy, and a lot of people are really into like engineering and hard sciences, and they always like they'd use the term philosopher as like a really derogatory term, like, oh, that's a philosopher, like as if they're selling ideas or something. And I don't know, like it's kind of it turns people off if they have different abilities, I guess, or different mindsets. But anyway, that's being a philosopher or being creative isn't for everyone either, because it takes a certain amount. Nowadays you have to have a good job to begin with, so you want to have something where you're creating value and you're doing good for people, and then you don't have to, once you get to that level where you've got things taken care of, you've got a roof over your head, and you've got things that you like, you're paying your bills, then you can probably start doing more creative things. And it just totally makes sense to me, because like, okay, it's like evolution is what it is. At the lower levels, you got to get your basic needs met, and once you get your basic needs met, once you're taking care of yourself, you can start taking care of other people, making the lives of other people better. And I know that's true. Like when I first came up to DC, and what's funny is when I first started making good money, it's like it was an ego trip for me. Like, I would go around and I just really thought that I was this awesome guy, and I was, dating a lot of girls, and it's a really, really awesome, like, ego trip to think, oh yeah, I'm really awesome and everything. But at some point, you want to play a different game where you're no longer, it's not just about you, At some point, it was no longer about me. It's like, how can I help people, and how can I make other people happy? How can I advance this cause that I'm a part of? How can I help my organization? It changes. It's a shift in the entire, like, consciousness. Like, I changed from just thinking about me to being able to look at a person and try as hard as I can to see what it must be like for that person. And different people who are having trouble, or I like to actually look at people that are doing really well. I like to look at people that are highly successful and think, how can I make their lives even better? We often see in the media the total opposite. What we usually see in the media is there's successful people out there, and we need to take from them. We need to take everything that they've got because they've got all this wealth. Why not kind of look at them and sort of, look at that model that they used and sort of, like, the word that came to my mind was bless them. Why not, kind of praise that they've actually succeeded and be happy for them? I think most people are naturally in that scarcity mindset, when it's much better to kind of think, wow, that just to gradually be happy for those people who have been so successful in life. And it can be any kind of success. And I've noticed when I kind of started thinking outside myself, I started getting some mentors, and I started looking and praising people that are 5-10 years beyond me. It shifted it. It made me more successful because I saw them. I could see them more realistically. There's a lot of old stories growing up. People are like, these. You hear stories like that implies that, like, a rich person, well, they're rich, but they're not happy. Is that necessarily true? I don't know. I mean, I've seen a lot of happy people who have money, and I've seen a lot of unhappy people who don't too. I have, my name's Frank Howard, and I'm not going to use any names or anything, but my brother, he's currently in the seminary, and he is constantly, he's just truly doing something for the sake of, he can be happy. Let's be honest, like, a priest is basically in poverty. A Catholic priest, they don't get a lot of credit in this country. And my brother, he joined the seminary at a much older age than most people. He started when he was 26. So he's one of those guys that had a lot of life experience under his belt before he went into the seminary. Some people right at age 18 are going in there, and they're like, I want to do this. They've never really been with girls. They've never really dated girls or anything like that. And when they go, my brother's telling me this happens all the time. Like, they'll end up leaving the seminary for girls because, they never had those experiences. So I think, he's one of those good priests that he's getting stuff done. And when, I think that's a good thing. And, we had this conversation. I didn't want to take it to this political, but you know what? This is reality. And we were talking yesterday because there's this Charlie Hebdo, basically in Paris, a bunch of terrorists killed these cartoonists. I'm sure if you're listening to this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They killed these cartoonists for drawing bad pictures of Muhammad. And I was just thinking, like, my brother as a Catholic priest, like, I don't care, but, like, I'm not a religious person. I haven't been going to church. I'm just, I can't believe I'm talking about politics and religion right now, because this is just not me. I never talk about these things. Anyway, like, I make fun of Jesus all the time. I'll just put it to you like that. Like, I always, like, used to say stuff about, Jesus, there's pictures of Jesus. It's just funny stuff. You look at the media, everybody can, like, laugh at, the Catholics. Everybody can laugh at all kinds of religions. People take But this one is just strange because, Bill Clinton came on and he's talking about the greatest double standard in the world. And the greatest double standard, I'm going to paraphrase what he said, but it's something along the lines of, we go to your country, we can't do any of the things, we're not allowed to think the way we want to think or worship the way we want to worship. You come into your country, you come into our country, and it's kind of like you're enforcing your views and, the hell with you type thing. Man, I totally botched that up. But I think people get the picture. Just if you Google something about that, then you'll you'll find it. Wow, so this is pretty good so far. We've gone only half an hour. I'm still getting a feel for how long each episode's going to be. I'm thinking somewhere along the lines of 45 minutes to an hour. That sounded, at first it seemed like a really hard thing to do, but so far I'm able to hold on to it because this is like the welcome episode. It's kind of like the Icebreaker Speech in Toastmasters, which is actually one of the easiest speeches they say. It's only a 4-minute speech, and the icebreaker it's about the easiest thing in the world to talk about, yourself. I think it says something like that in the manual. Talk about the easiest thing in the world. For some people, that is very easy. Actually, I think for most people, if they think about it the right way, it's easy for most of them. Because you talk about stuff that you know. But if we're talking really something really tech, it's a 4-minute speech and it's an icebreaker speech. It's all about you, And then as you progress, it's how to format things. And I might even look at the manual again to try to get some inspiration for material. But so far, it's been really simple talking about stuff here. Let's see, we're in playoff season with the NFL. I'm not like a super hardcore. I mean, I watch football games. I like watching football games, but I'll be honest. I've watched so much football this year. I think every weekend I've watched all the games, but I'm not like I can't tell you stats. I can't tell you anything. I mean, gosh, because some of the people I work with are incredible football people. Like, they know all the teams, all the coaches, and I follow the teams and the coaches too. I like keeping up with Peyton Manning and the Broncos, and it's been a good year for the Patriots. They're the team that people love to hate, but it's actually they've been dominating pretty well. And just all the teams, the Cowboys, the Redskins. I was kind of happy to watch the Redskins the first time they played Dallas this year, beat the Cowboys. That was, I don't know why. I just kind of I think being up here 7 years and seeing all the heartburn that a typical Redskins fan goes through. And I think I'm kind of this year I kind of converted. I was like, it was an interesting year too because RG3 had injuries and Colt McCoy. This was the year that Colt McCoy was playing, and he kind of he beat the Cowboys, and people are like, there's a lot of talk of this, a lot of talk of that. But it's just been an interesting year for the Redskins, and I guess I was satisfied with the season. It is what it is. We know about the Redskins, and yeah. So the Packers, they actually beat the Cowboys last week, and that was, this was talked to death. But the pass that was the catch, that was pretty. It was very controversial. I think a lot of people say that it was a catch. It wasn't a catch. That's the other thing. It's I'm not going to get caught up. I'm sure a lot of the people listening, if you're football fans, you probably know more, about this. I'm not a huge. I just like watching the games. I love football in general, the strategy of it. I like the coaches. I like following the players, the different positions. To me, it's a strategic game. It's I can just sit back and watch it. Other sports, I like basketball too, but basketball is so in the moment. And it's for me, it's work almost to watch it because it's oh my gosh, what's going to happen here? it's still a great sport. It's just a completely different sport from like the teamwork involved with an NFL sports team. And I like to, one of my buddies and I were talking about quarterbacks, like how, like Russell Wilson, for example. It's not just the quarterback, it's the people that he's surrounded by, is the defense, the offense, like I said, the coaches, the players. What's going to happen next year? Is this player going to go here or there? And, that's part of why I started to like the NFL more. When I was younger, in college, I used to watch like the Tennessee Vols, was a huge Tennessee Vols fan. And people always say this, like when you start going to the NFL, the timeline is a little bit longer. So you can see entire careers of people like Peyton Manning, I think, has had a wonderful career. And the Broncos have been, he's done really well with them. A lot of people are going to say a lot of different things, but I think that overall Peyton Manning's done pretty well. And a lot of other just opinions and everything are out there. But so I like watching sports. NFL. If that just bored the shit out of people, I apologize. And okay, I just dropped the shit word. I think I'm just going to go ahead and cuss in this podcast. I went as long as I could. I'm just going to talk like I normally talk. And if I happen to use swear words, I will. And if that means that, like, when I submit this to iTunes, it's going to have to be 18 plus, then so be it. Because I can just see myself going off here, like in the future, with a lot of different things. So, speaking of NFL stuff, like, maybe it was some of the, I've been watching a lot of football. And it's funny how, like, you watch things and eventually you get inspired. Like, for whatever reason, like, the NFL kind of inspired me to start weightlifting again. And I started back in October. In 2014, I was a big runner. I went to the Cherry Blossom 10 miler. I ran 10 miles. And I kind of went hardcore. I was running like 20 or 30 miles a week. To me, that's hardcore. I know there's, in this DC area, if you start meeting enough people, you'll quickly find out that there's a lot of super hardcore runners, hardcore athletes. Man, I'm talking way too fast. Let me get some water real quick. There's a lot of like really hardcore athletes. They run a shitload, and I got down. I'm 6'3", and I got down to about 177. I think you may be even a little bit lighter than that. And I was just super thin, and it was I just didn't like it. So I started squatting. And the reason I was squatting is because I've been told so many things about the benefits of squats. It changes your hormonal profile, or whatever, however you term that. But basically, if you want to quickly gain weight, get your testosterone up, and get more strength fast, squats, going all the way down and lifting heavy is the way to do it. So I started doing that. I'm up to about 210 right now, but the hard part's been eating. You got to be eating a lot of protein, and you got to be eating right. But I've had a bit of a transformation. I need to get back on it and keep going with it. But sometimes I don't know why, because I think that NFL players squatting is probably a huge part of their fitness and training that they do to make themselves stronger. So when I watch NFL, for whatever reason, it just makes me want to like hit the squat. The reason I like squatting is because it's like to me it's kind of like that 80-20 principle, where it's like squatting, if you can not fuck around and squat all the way down, all the way up, slowly get through it, you'll get the best benefits. You're going to get a hardcore workout, but the thing is, nobody wants to do it. Let's be honest. Like, I go to the gym, you see most people, they're on the bench press, they're doing biceps, or they're just not working their legs. And the legs are really important muscles, and maybe people are afraid of, getting super sore the next day and not being able to walk around. But I think it's just worth the pain. If you're going to take the time to work out, you got to, the legs combined, like the quads and the hamstrings and the glutes, are some of the biggest muscles in the body. So if you're working the biggest muscles in the body, that's going to react to the rest of the body. And so yeah, that's my little rant on squatting. I think squatting is a great way to develop fitness and to get stronger. You see a lot of women into squatting these days. I think that because the result is that like really attractive, the really attractive ass, I guess. Yeah, like I couldn't think of the word. Like I don't know. Like you know what I'm saying. Like whenever they show models and stuff, you can tell the women that are like actually squatting all the way down and everything because they got a really nice shaped gluteus maximus. It's really good. And so we're like at 40 minutes. I'm not looking at I'm looking at the time really just to see what a full 40 minutes feels like. What does an hour feel like? And I want to see if there's anything else I forgot from here. Oh yeah, Clash of Clans. Kind of want to talk about Clash of Clans a little bit more. Give a little update on where my my town hall is. If people are interested in Clash of Clans, I might give regular updates on this. But I'm loading up my my village right now. And I think this week I want to talk about walls because I've been holding off on doing a lot of my upgrades, like my towers and everything. I'm not going to be upgrading anything like that because I basically have max level Town Hall 9 everything. Like I have I have a level 7 air defense. I got level 7 hidden Teslas and everything. My archers are level 11. Everything is pretty much maxed if you're a Town Hall 9. Now, I'm a Town Hall 10. I kind of rushed it a little bit, and eventually I want to get max Town Hall 10. But so that there's a transition you make from like the purple walls to the skull walls. And people who play Clash of Clans understand. The purple walls cost, I think, 250 or 300 gold, and skull walls are 500,000 gold every upgrade. So that's just a hell of a lot of work. Like I can probably only upgrade one wall a day, about 1 or 2 walls a day. That's kind of been my goal, actually, 2 walls a day, and that's why I've put that priority on that. And let me just give a real quick update. And sorry if you're... Well, I'm not going to apologize because I love Clash of Clans. But if you don't do Clash of Clans, I don't mean... I want to keep your attention here. I don't want you to like... and maybe just give it a try if you want. It's a fun game. Okay, let's see. I have 148 skull walls and 102... purple walls. So I have 102 walls that need to be built. If I do 2 walls a day, that means I've got about 50 days or a little bit over a month before I complete all of these walls. So that's not too bad if I get 2 a day. Now 2 a day is actually it's not the easiest. When you're a Town Hall 10, you get a heavy loot. You don't get as much of a loot when you're attacking other people. But yeah, I'm in the King's Rock family, and for anybody that's in Clash of Clans that knows, King's Rock is the #1 clan in the world. King's Rock, if you load Clash of Clans and you look up the top in the world, it's consistently in the top 10. Last week and over the winter, it was #1. I'm not in King's Rock itself, but there's a King's Rock family. There's King's Rock Diamond, King's Rock, King's Tower. And I was in King's Wolf, and King's Wolf kind of got disbanded. It's pretty cool the way these players work. Like at King's Rock, that you have to download this mandatory app, and you can actually see other players. You can see pictures of them, where they're at, where they're from, and it's a worldwide, international thing. So there was people in my clan from South Africa. There was a lawyer in my clan, and people like my age who are professionals in their 30s that are just really into Clash of Clans. And there's a lot more people like that than I thought. And it's funny because when you first start, if you're in the little kiddie clans, most of the clans are like teenagers and they're kind of selfish. If you donate, they won't donate back. But as you move up in the higher and higher clans, you start seeing people like I think there was a race car driver in our clan too. So it's pretty interesting. But anyway, that was King's Wolf, which got disbanded. I think now a lot of the members from King's Wolf are now in King's Jewel. I happened to find King's Tower Farm. So right now I'm in this clan called King's Tower Farm, and it's from King's Tower. And I'm just glad that King's Rock has a farming clan, because so the other clan was a warring clan. And it was just, with my new job, I've switched into a new job, doing a little bit more like project management type stuff. I'm still kind of figuring it out. But I didn't, as a New Year's resolution, I was like, I don't want to be consumed by Clash of Clans. I'm already giving a talk about it, but I didn't want to get consumed by it. I didn't want to, have any issues with it. So I decided that I was going to just participate, play a little bit more casually, and just farm. I just want to farm my walls. And okay, what farming means in Clash of Clans is you can either try to get to the top of the leaderboards, which is going to cost you a lot of resources, or you can spend all your resources on developing your village and developing your ability to attack more. And the way I believe, until I have everything maxed, which is going to take a long time, until I have everything on my base maxed, I probably shouldn't be pushing for trophies to get to the top of the leaderboards. So that's sort of what I'm doing. I'm waiting till I have everything maxed out. Yeah. So, in conclusion, we talked about a lot of things, starting with my name, Frank Howard, and I'm going to hopefully keep using that name. And if this podcast ever gets really popular, maybe I'll just go by Frank Howard. That's my pen name. Is that wrong? If there's comments, if I've had this set up to leave comments, that would be a great topic to talk about, like pen names, because I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that maybe you're thinking of starting a podcast, maybe you're thinking of doing something. Is it okay to just use a pen name like that? Like for me, I just don't want to get accosted by people at work. I have a professional, face. It's stupid, right? But even in 2015 now, your online presence is very important, and I just don't want to risk anything. So that's kind of why I did it. There's probably a bunch of other good reasons too, but it took me forever to even come up with that name, Frank Howard. That sounds like a realistic name. Like, my middle name's Frank, and so just Frank Howard, and the Totally Hooked podcast. That's the name I decided to go with too. Totally Hooked. Why? I don't know why. That was the first couple words that came to my mind, and I don't know. I think the content is what's important, and if this is really good content, everything else will take care of itself, including the name. I might start to develop things like they say, the look of the logo and all this other shit. I mean, I don't know if people want to hear this. Like, they probably want to hear other stuff that's going on in life, but hopefully this was entertaining for you. I've gone on for 47 minutes now. I think that's a good level. They say in podcasting too, you want to keep the length of time. Well, what I'm thinking of doing is, at a minimum, doing a 45-minute podcast, and then going anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour. I found that that's just a good length that I like. My favorite podcasts are about an hour long. An hour is a great amount of time to get, like we said, we got a bunch of different subjects in. We learned the word gratuitous, which I didn't use at all throughout this. We talked about being a creative versus a consumer. Creative people tend to create value, and consumers tend to consume value. Like Clash of Clans, for example. People can, is Clash of, as a consumer, I'm consuming a product when I'm playing that game. Now the designers, which are, I think that company is multiple billions now. It's the top number one grossing app in the iTunes store. I'm pretty sure they're making billions, and they are a creator. They created a product. They had a vision. They created something, and consumers are consuming it. We talked about the power of community colleges, and we talked we talked a little bit about that ISIS stuff that's going on in the world, and just how it's strange how a lot of people make fun of different like Jesus gets made fun of all the time, but other people get made fun of if you make fun of their prophet. So who knows? I know here in the D.C. area, there's a large Muslim population. I mean, there's a lot of Muslims around here, and they're wearing their hijab, and it's just, I don't want to make it like personal about religion. That's the same thing like with like my brother with Catholics, religion. I'm not a huge like religious person, like in the sense of like I don't create an identity out of it, and I also don't try to enforce my views onto other people. That's when it starts to draw the line. When boundaries are broken, when somebody's boundaries try to interfere with your boundaries, that's when it's like, okay, you're missing the point, because there should be good teachings behind all that. Anyway, so that's, I'm Frank Howard. This is a Totally Hooked podcast. I'm really thankful and glad to have gotten through this welcome episode 1 of the Totally Hooked podcast. I hope everybody has a terrific week. Hope everyone has a great day, and peace. All right, goodbye.